contract with Capitol Records to do an album of my own songs. I was a folk singer. And my son drowned in the swimming pool of my music attorney, and I left the business. I left town for like 12 years, did a walkabout, went back to college, all that shit, came home after 12 years because my dad, who was a Disney artist, had a heart attack. My kid's father walked out on me and left me in a whole new state, you know, a whole new situation, no job, no nothing. I went back to college. I got an RN and graduated at 42 with honors, on welfare with 2 kids, you know. So then I'm still doing show business because somehow the 40th anniversary comes around of Playboy, because I was an old centerfold from the first 10 years of Playboy. And so suddenly I'm going out, I'm doing a lot of, you know, autograph signings, you know, all the PR, all that shit all the time, you know, and back in doing acting and whatever, but I'm also having to counterbalance because now I'm an RN, right? And now I've got this responsibility of taking care of dying people. I just got laid off 2.5 weeks ago because I'm getting too old and I cost too much.
Well, what do you want to do?
So I've got, well, I'm finishing my first memoir. I'm writing a musical, and I've got the 6-part television series that I produced for the Pasadena Museum of History on this community legacy. 6 families, each of a different ethnicity, who've been in the Pasadena area for more than 3 generations. And then my co-producer split and left me with all this raw footage because his cameraman fucked up. You know, and so all of this stuff was in all of this different format, you know, and audio was over here and video was over here and this didn't, you know, sync, you know, all this shit. And so then my brother-in-law, who's like my mother and, I mean, I am his mother's age, right? And they're living in my mother's house. My mother just died, and now they're, you know, and now the trust comes out where they this is the guy who's helping me edit, right, because now he knows his shit. And now I'm finding out that they have manipulated my mother into changing the trust. So instead of 50%, now I'm getting 30%. So I just
okay,
had an attorney yesterday.
let's talk about what is solution. Okay, so what is solution?
You know?
What is potential solution for Victoria?
You got to move forward somehow.
So focus.
Pick one thing.
Well, I did. I picked an attorney yesterday.
Pick one.
No, pick one.
Yeah.
You know, art thing that you want to finish.
Well, yeah, I got to finish the memoir. That's the first thing.
But what he's saying is so true. Like, if you are tenacious and nothing's going to stop you, and you're focused and you're driven and you're taking actions, it becomes a vortex, and the universe starts to conspire in your favor, and these people get pulled in that you need. But it starts with you being like, vroom, and then people come, you know?
I think people like to be there at the end.
Exactly.
So if they see you're gonna finish this. If they see somebody who's gonna finish something, they'll jump in, not because they want to help you, they want to be there at the end.
Exactly. Such a good point.
If they don't see you're gonna end it, goodbye.
Which means you have to know that you're going to finish it.
That is excellent. That is so correct. That is so correct. Yes.
And I think in the universe is an exchange of energy as well, and you have to put out positive. You have to put out, this is what I've got, this is what I've got to offer the world. And when somebody comes to you that says, I mean, I know Amy, and Amy does this. If you go to Amy and say, not to put you on the spot and have you flooded with emails, but if you go to Amy and say, you know, I've got this thing and I'm trying to figure it out, she'll sit there and go, I know this person, that person, blah, 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 blah. She puts out that positive energy, and I think when you put out that vibe that you have something to offer and that you're willing to give back to other people, that exchange of energy happens and people find you as well.
So it's positivity and it's organization. If you put out a chaotic vibe, people scatter because of what Larry's talking about. They want to see the finish line and they want to walk over it with you. And the other thing is passion. Find someone who shares a passion in whatever you filmed. I don't care how many formats it's on or whatever, but I'm doing this movie on the Cows Hills. We've been shooting for 7 years. It's on every format, on every computer. There's 300 hours of footage. The Cows Hills are all over the map in terms of trying to, you know, dictate how their story is told. You can't have a documentary film subject tell you how to, you know, so I'm just trying to stay focused even when you're getting an email that just breaks your heart and makes you want to cry, focused, passionate, and still. Because let everyone else be chaotic. You be the light that they're drawn to.
It's all, you know, and you have that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think
Challenge
generally, that's sort of where things are at.
There's
Things
this
are
other-
getting to shit lately.
There's this other thing that
Dwayne,
I
It
think
ain't
is,
easy.
I'm telling you.
It's not that it's easy. I lived in Canada for 22 years, and it was really, like, I think this is where my whole thing about, like, the energy spreading
Yeah.
around came from. Because in Canada, if you're a writer, you mostly don't make a living. Like, there's just not enough people to buy books. I mean, everyone in Canada could buy your book and you would not. So the great thing about that, the great thing about it is, there's this whole sense there of you create art because you create art. Like, there's like this feeling of like, why do I write? I write because I love stories. And I was surrounded by that. And then I moved to Los Angeles. So I just moved to Los Angeles 9 years ago, and it freaked me out. Like, I spent 2.5 years being completely flipped out by this town because of terms like, no offense, monetizing, and who do you know, and your success, and are you a success, and blah, 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 blah. And I started like believing it, right? Like, I started believing that my success meant that people knew who I was, or that everyone, you know, that I was like invited to whatever, you know. And honestly, like, I've spent the last 7 years figuring out, wait a minute, go back to that place where I write because I love stories. And you know, and if I'm in it, like this book, I was in, I love this book. I'm happy, it's done, I did it. I created this thing that I know is good. Somebody's gonna buy it someday, or not, or whatever, and I can't, if I spend all my time going like, but why haven't they bought it, and who's gonna buy it, blah, 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 I can't write the next one.
That's true, but then there comes a point where I have to feed my children.
Yes, so I have to
rent,
feed
you gotta
people,
pay
so
bills, you
I
gotta get
teach and I
dogs.
do this.
Well, this is, okay, this is what I
When
learned
it
from
comes down to that.
from Tony Robbins, because I just, anyway, I don't care who gives me this. But he said something really true, and he used an example as a screenwriter in the book, so kind of, but it applies to anybody. He said, most people don't know what their own goal really is. They have a false goal. When you're writing a book, the false goal is, I want to finish the book. That's not the goal. The goal is to go into a store and buy it. That's the goal. So when you have your mind set on finishing the book, because that's the goal, when you finish the book, your mind says, okay, I'm on to the next thing, and you never sell the book. But if you say, I'm writing this to sell it, the mind stays focused on that goal. So when you finish the book, then you got to get an agent. And your mind isn't finished because you got to get an agent, and then he's got to sell it, and you get on the agent, and you make sure, and then blah blah blah. Like this guy with OCD, he was trying to get an agent at the same time he was selling this book in front of the bookstore. He finally, when he got an agent, he just said, just send the book, just get it published and send it to one bookstore. This is an amazing story. He sent it to one Malibu bookstore. His book was published and sent to one Malibu bookstore. He kept on staying in front of that store and kept on telling people, buy this book. I wrote it. It's a good book. Buy it. He would take them, and he wasn't allowed to do this. They would throw him out. So he would take these, down here, he'd take them to the book shelf. He'd say, is this? Well, I was thinking as he kept on, he says, I sold 3 books today. And I'm going, you're going to get arrested. It's illegal to do that. You know, or every author would be in bookstores. You know. He says, you're going to get arrested. He said, yeah, but I can't help it, man. It's my book. Well, what happened from this bad thing? He calls me up and he says, guess what? I said, I don't know. He said, my book is the best-selling book in that store. So the bookseller phoned the distributor and said, hey, this book is really selling, sell us more. The distributor started to sell it to all the Malibu bookstores.
That.
Now, this is true and you can check it. Within 3 months, his book was the #1 book sold on the LA best-selling